about what we've done. What a great place to be, eh? What a great place to be. Such security, such provision. No matter on our good days or on our bad days, He sees us through the lens of Jesus, and we're holy. Such confidence we can just enter and ask for help with no fear of punishment. Isn't that a good place to be? That is a good place to be this morning. Such a good place to be. Well, Ian's in Christchurch this morning. He flew up first thing this morning. He's going to be with Terry back tomorrow. And last weekend, very unexpectedly, I was in Christchurch. I was with Kate Judson with the Sozo conference. And it was a great time. And one of the ladies came and spoke to me on the Sunday service, and she said, "Oh, is Ian here?" And I said, no, he's coming next weekend. She said, "Oh, but you're here this weekend, and he's here next weekend. Are you coming back with him?" I said, "No, we had a fight, and we're trying to keep apart." And I think she believed me. So I said to him this morning, "Perhaps you better find that lady and just tell her that I was having her on, just in case, you know how word gets around, So there you are. So I'm not too sure whether you'll find her or not, but you never know. This morning I'm going to talk about transition. Those of you that have had a baby will know about the transition stage. That's a stage just immediately before the woman gives birth to the baby. That's the stage where all the wheels fall off the trolley. That's the stage where she might start swearing. She might say some astonishing things, and if you're the observer, it can be quite hilarious. She may fix her partner with an eye like it's all your fault, and I'm never, ever, ever going to come back here again. So just keep that in your thinking. And you've been there several times. And that at that point, there is no strength left, and you just don't feel like you can do this anymore, and there's no joy, and it's all hard work, and I don't want to do this anymore. We are a nation in transition. We are a church in transition. We're in a time of transition. We're transitioning now into Christmas and then holidays, which affects our whole nation. And there's changes. A year in 2014 is not going to look like what it is now in 2013. There are going to be different. And with every change that God ordains for us, there is an upgrade where He makes provision for us to move into a new level of where we can access new resources of His love and His provision and His grace and His goodness. And it's yours for the taking. And here is a church this morning. We're in a time of transition. If you're facing difficulties now, guess what? That is part of the transition. And that is the part that's going to cause us to cry out to God, "God, we need you. We need your help." And there's a couple, I want to talk about a transition that was in the Bible. And it's mentioned in Isaiah 34, and 2 Kings and in 2 Chronicles mentions the same experience. And it's a time when Israel and Judah were divided. King Hezekiah had succeeded to the throne. He had been reigning for 15 years. And every year he had to pay a tribute to the king of Assyria. And this year King Hezekiah said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And I'm taking the bulk of my reading from Isaiah 36. I'm not going to read the whole story because it's quite a long passage, and I realize that we all want to get out of here before 12 o'clock. So for your sake. And so he decided, no, I'm not going to pay this tribute anymore. I don't like this anymore. And so the king of Assyria had a fit. He threw all his toys out of the cot, and he decided, right, I will make them pay. And so he started advancing towards Jerusalem. Every town, every city on the way, he went in, he destroyed it, he devastated the crops, he took the people captive. And can you imagine if you're a citizen of Jerusalem and you see on the horizon the smoke rising, And the messengers come running with what the king has done to that city. And you see every day it's getting closer and closer as each town, each village capitulates to this invading force of this angry king. And they're coming right to your borders. How would you feel if you were in that position? King Hezekiah thought, oops, maybe I got it wrong. And so he emptied the treasury. He pulled the gold off the temple pillars and used that to pay the tribute. But the king said, too late, too little, too late. And he kept advancing to the border. And then finally there they are outside Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem has been fortified over the intervening years. They've built up the walls. They've covered the conduit where the water came in. And they've, pretty much protected themselves. So you can imagine the gates are all closed. The city is kind of in a siege mentality. And everybody is terrified. Can you imagine what it'd be like living in the city at that time? Not a comfortable position. And so out comes a general who's known as Rabshakeh, but we're just going to call him the general because it's easier to say. And and he's outside the gate, so they sent 3 people out to talk to him. And so the general said to them, tell Hezekiah that the great king, in other words, the king of Assyria, says this. I'm reading in verses 4 at the moment of Isaiah 36. What kind of backing do you think you have to stand against me? You're bluffing, and I'm calling your bluff. Your words are no match for my weapons. Isn't that a good line? What kind of backup do you have now that you've rebelled against me? Egypt, don't make me laugh. Egypt is a rubber crutch. You lean on that, you will fall over. And if you try and tell me we're leaning on God, isn't that a bit late? Hasn't Hezekiah just gotten rid of all the places of worship, telling you you've got to worship at this altar, at the altar at Jerusalem? Be reasonable, he says. Face the facts. My master, the king of Assyria, could give you 2,000 horses, but you wouldn't even have the horsemen to put on them. What can you do? Do you think you can stand up to me? But even the lowest ranking captain in my master's army could take you. And besides, do you think I came all this way to destroy this land without first getting the Lord's blessing? It was your God that told me, make a war on this land and destroy it. So the 3 men answered the general, please speak to us in Aramaic, so the people on the wall don't understand you. And he said, blow that. These guys are in for it too. They need to hear all the gory details that's going to happen to them. And so he carried on. It's interesting. He spoke Hebrew. I wonder if he actually was a Hebrew who had absconded to the enemy. Maybe he was a captive. We don't know. But he had taunt after taunt after taunt designed to demoralize and humiliate. And the structure of the taunts is what I want us to look at today, because the enemy will use it again and again and again with us. And it's brilliant, and it actually works. And if we can understand that, it's really helpful. A bit of knowledge beforehand will forearm you. And so it's really helpful to understand the structure that the enemy will use against us. The first part of the structure that he attacks Hezekiah's own strength and ability. And how do we find this when this happens? Like the woman in transition who goes, I don't want to do this anymore. We go, are we really up for this? Am I strong enough for this battle? You might be in the middle of a difficulty right now, and you feel like your back is against the wall, and you're really struggling to see your way forward. And the the willingness to just capitulate and give it all up and get hopeless and to fall into a pit of despair is so attractive. You might be second guessing yourself. Am I up for this? Have I got what it takes? Can I really pull this through? Have I got the strength to carry on and get through this? Do I really understand the situation as it is? Or am I just living in la-la land? It's the same as a woman in labour. The very firm suddenly becomes very shaky, and we become very, very unsure of ourselves. It's a classic. And the same doubt was put in Eve's mind. When the serpent came and said to her, did God really say? Has God said? You know, she starts thinking, actually, did I hear that right? Same doubt. Are you sure that's right? And the second thing is he attacks our own strength and ability, and then he attacks our walk with the Lord. That's the second part, where we start questioning, well, did I hear God correctly? Did I actually get that right? Was I just dreaming, or did I add my own interpretation? Did I really get that right? And then he twists it to add a little smear to God's character. It's so classic. It's like God's holding out on you. But like the TUI ads. You know those TUI ads? They're brilliant. Some of them are absolutely classic. And I saw one just recently. What is it? TUI employ women. Gorgeous woman. Yeah, right. You know the ad? The gorgeous woman that TUI is. Now, if you're employed by TUI today, please, 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 please don't take it personally. I'm just using it as an example. So just check with your neighbour. Do you work for TUI? You know, not talking about you. So don't take it. But just that whole, yeah, right, is designed to smear the whole thing. And so often, and, you know, that's what the enemy does too. You know, we might know that God will make provision for us. And, you know, we're crying out to him provision. And the enemy will make us think there's some truth that we haven't got right, a higher truth above absolute truth, and that God will hold back on you because of something you have done. Yes, he's your provider. Yes, but there are conditions on that promise. You've got to love him with all your heart, and you've got to do what he says. Otherwise, you disqualify yourselves. And who are you to expect God to bless your disobedience? He's going to hold out on you. Hear that? Yeah, right? That's exactly what the enemy does, because there's no way he wants you to believe God's promise. He did it with Eve. He said to Eve, yeah, God doesn't want you to eat that apple, because if you do, you will see what's really going on and become like him. He's holding out on you. So the enemy will try to smear the character of God to you, where you start thinking, is he good all the time, or are there just times that I don't understand that he's not so good? If you're thinking like that this morning, is this sickness that's on me because I haven't been, you know, something's happened and it's my fault and I deserve it? If you're thinking like that, you're listening to the butcher or the enemy. Okay, the third thing he does is he attacks relationships with friends and leaders. All the relationships around that person start to come into question. Are my friends for me? Do they really understand me? Do my leaders really have my best interests at heart? Are they really looking after me, or are they after their own agenda? And you start to doubt. Are they really there for me? Offences build, fractions form, and suddenly you've got a number of camps, and people become isolated, and they pull back from community. Brothers and sisters, we're designed for community. We absolutely need community. It's no use watching TV and making that your church service. I mean, it's great to do online stream. Hear me, I'm not saying anything against that, but we need community, because that's not really church. We need each other. Iron sharpens iron. We need community, and we're designed for community, and we cannot come to our potential and our fullness in God unless we have community. But when we're offended and when we draw aside and when we kind of gather away because we get offended or whatever, we are isolated. The enemy loves that. Why? Because we're easy targets, easy to pick off. Just one as opposed to a whole group. We need to be so careful about becoming isolated. It's 3 stages. It is classic. It sets the stage for the final one. Create doubt with self, create doubt with God, and create doubt with other friends and leaders. It's just classic. It just isolates, sets the stage for the agenda of the enemy. So then the general stood up and shouted, I'm reading back in the word again, shouted in Hebrew to the people on the wall. Here's the agenda. Listen to this message from the great king of Assyria. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He will never be able to rescue you. Don't let him fool you into trusting the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely rescue us. This city will never fall into the hands of the Syrian king. It is rubbish. It is not going to happen. Don't listen to Hezekiah. These are the terms that the king of Syria is offering. Make peace with me. Here's your agenda. Open the gates and come out. Then each one of you can continue eating from your grapevine and fig tree and drinking from your own well. Then I will arrange to take you to another land just like this one, a land of grain and new wine, bread, vineyards, and slavery. Nothing really. Don't let Hezekiah mislead you. The Lord will rescue us. How stupid. Have the gods of other nations ever saved their people from the king of Assyria? What God of any nation has ever been able to save its people from my power? So what makes you think that the Lord can rescue Jerusalem from me? Here we are. Here's the agenda. Come and let me be your friend and I will look after you. It's not going to be like what you've known before, but it will be to my advantage, not yours. He attacks, this is a 4th part, he attacks your identity or the calling or the mission that's on your life. That's the agenda of the enemy. And he makes you think, can you trust that call? Forget those others. They're not for you anyway. They've never valued you. They've not appreciated you. What about that? It's time I started looking after myself. Oh, for goodness sake. What is it about these ones? They don't care about me anyway. It's time I looked after number one. And he will cement that isolation by laying out a different agenda. And that's the strategy. You got it wrong. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust God. And you definitely can't trust those friends or those leaders because they get it wrong too. Just destroys trust. Trust. And then he lays out the cherry on the pie. Well, actually, it was God that sent me. God told me to come to you to give you this opportunity to change your situation. That's what he does. If you trust me, you'll get a good deal. Time to look after you. So what does Hezekiah do? King Hezekiah, when he hears this, he tears his clothes, which is a symbolic of, weeping and mourning. And he went to the temple and he sent for Isaiah. And he acknowledges the transition. And the verse that says here is, we are like a pregnant woman without the strength to birth the baby. Here we are, classic transition. We've got our back against the wall. No one else has stood up to this army. Everybody's capitulated. The history is total defeat. Who are we to think we're anybody different? And he's got his back against the wall. He's down on his knees before God. He's saying, we have no strength. Some of you here this morning are feeling that I don't have any strength for this. I can't do this anymore. I cannot stay in this relationship anymore. It is killing me. I cannot cope with this financial situation. How am I going to get through Christmas? I am not going to get through this. Or the work situations. I cannot cope with my employment situation. I need employment. I don't want to be unemployed anymore. I cannot cope. Many of you identify. I want you to say this morning, success in God's eyes is when you let God help you with your weakness. That's God's measure of success. It's not about what you do, your talents, your abilities, your accomplishments. That doesn't matter a tin of fish to God. It's about letting Him help you in your weakness. So God loves your weaknesses. He absolutely loves them. Why? Not because He wants to punish you. No, you've got that wrong. It's because in our weaknesses we acknowledge actually we have no strength, and it drives us to God. And that's where He wants us all the time. He loves your weaknesses. But if you use them to come to God and receive His strength, that is success in God's eyes. It's a process. It's a process. It's absolutely a process. And if you're more of a feeler type of temperament, you'll go up much quicker than a doer who will do it at any cost and show everybody else how to do it properly. It's just the way we're wired. He loves our weaknesses. So Isaiah, who has heard, and he sends a message to King Hezekiah, and he says, this is what the Lord says. Don't be disturbed by this blasphemous speech against me from the Assyrian king's messages. Listen, I will move myself against him, and the king will receive a message that he's needed at home. He will return to his land, and I will arrange for him to be killed with the sword. Okay, that's good to know. It gives you a bit of confidence. And as the general received no response from the city, he actually withdrew. And so he went back to connect with his king, and the king was occupied in other battles that were happening at the time. And so there must have been a great sigh of relief in the city as the troops withdrew from the actual battle formation that they formed. But however, the king of Assyria was not going to let them off that easy. And so he sent a letter to them basically detailing much of what had already been said. Don't let your God, in whom you trust, deceive you with promises that Jerusalem will not be captured by the king of Assyria. You know perfectly well what I have done to other cities before you. And they have been completely destroyed, and everyone who stood in my way. Why should you be any different? Hear the taunts again. Have the gods of other nations rescued them? So Hezekiah got this telegram of congratulations from the devil. Great. Took it to the temple and spread it out before God, on his knees before God. And he prayed this prayer, O Lord of heaven, you alone are God of the kings of the earth. You alone created the heavens and the earth. Bend down, O Lord, and listen. Open your eyes, Lord, and see. Listen to these words of defiance against you. It's true, Lord, that all the nations that have stood up against this king have been completely defeated. And they have thrown down all the gods of those nations. But of course they could, because they're only gods of wood and stone, and they've got no power anyway. Lord, rescue us from his power, and then let all the kingdoms of the earth know that you alone are God. There's the agenda. Wanting God's name to be honoured. There it is. And so he did. He heard, and he took it to the temple, spread it out. He didn't talk about it with his friends. He didn't go and let the the messengers let everybody else know. He just took it to the temple, laid it down before God, which is a really good place to go. When things happen to you, it doesn't really matter what other people think or say, but it really matters a lot what God says. Because when you hear the word of God for yourself personally, it sets you free from all the torment and all the struggle. When you have your own personal rhema from the Lord, you are freed from all that struggle, and there is a grace that comes upon you. And then Isaiah sent a message, and it's so gorgeous. It says, he's talking about to the king of Assyria, it says, "Who do you think you've been mocking and reviling all these years? Who do you think you've been jeering and treating with such utter contempt all these years? The Holy One of Israel. You've bragged. With my chariots I've gone to the highest mountain, penetrated the far reaches, chopped down the giant cedars. I've conquered the highest peak. I've explored the deepest forest. I dug wells and drunk my fill. I emptied the famous rivers of Egypt," oh my goodness, "with one kick of my foot." How about that? That's what he's bragged. And then the Lord says to him, "Haven't you gotten the news that I've been behind it all along? This is a long-standing plan of mine, and I'm making it happen, using you to devastate the strong cities, turning them into piles of rubble. I know all about your pretentious poses, and I know your officious comings and goings and the tantrums that you throw against me. And all because of the wild raging that has been against me, your unbridled arrogance that I keep hearing of, I will put a hook in your nose and a bit in your mouth." How about that? How do you like those cookies? That's another way of looking at it completely. God set this up all along and was using the king of Assyria to do his purposes, but now it had come to an end, and this was going to be his undoing. Isaiah is saying, you mocked the Lord. It wasn't you that did that. God had predetermined it all along, but this will be your downfall. Isn't that good news? When you know you've got an idea of the heart of God over a situation, when you understand how he sees things and from his perspective, how it can set you free from anxiety, it just makes such a difference. If any of you have ever owned a cat, you often find that a cat will bring in a half-dead bird. You ever wonder why they do that? Well, they do that to teach their kittens how to actually not only catch the bird, but how to kill it and eat it. Now, you as an owner, if you've had a cat bring in a half-dead bird, well, obviously you haven't been catching a lot of birds recently, so this cat is trying to help you learn the lesson of how to kill the bird and eat it. Often we don't like that, but however, that's actually the purpose of that. And so, and the mother cat brings... Well, the cat brings a bird that is maimed and cannot get away, knowing that its kittens can finish it off because the main fight has been taken out of it. And in the same way, when difficulties arise, it is like God bringing to us a half-dead bird. The main fight's been taken out of it, and God knows, has absolute confidence that actually you can finish it off. He's giving you your victory. He's confident in your victory this morning. Whatever your situation is, he knows that you can finish it off, otherwise you would not be in that situation. Did God cause that situation? No. He's a good God. He's always a good God. Always, always. He doesn't change. He is always a good God. But does God use that situation to teach us more about his goodness? You bet he does. He uses it. It's a half-dead bird. Hezekiah heard, he believed, everything changed. And when you hear God's word for yourself, everything changes. Peace comes, healing comes, grace comes, joy comes, and it doesn't make sense. Everything changes. Everything changes when you hear that. That night, the army of the king of Syria's men of 185,000 people were suddenly slaughtered overnight. And the historians that talk about it think it was due to a plague that struck them overnight. But the king, it's interesting, the king himself, when he returned home, he doesn't make mention of it. He just says, I changed my mind and went home in his writings. I decided to leave and come back home. But all the other historians make mention of the army of 185,000 men that were slain overnight. God had his victory. You know, God, when we go through difficulties, God has a different agenda to what we have. I recently became very aware. I went through, in my talking with Kate one time, she was taking me through a bit of a so-so. And one of the questions she got me to ask God was, Father God, how do you see me? And I had this vivid picture of, it was as clear as anything, of a tall tree. It was like a golden tree in the middle of a large grassy area. It was tall. It had a very big shelter area underneath it. And there was nothing else around it. It was as vivid as. And I thought, and at the time it made me feel really good. I thought, that's really nice. You know, you think of all the different similes. And then I was flying home in recent times, and I was just looking out the window, looking at the mountains and just talking with the Lord. And I was thinking about a different situation that had been very painful for me. It was a time when I was alongside a person who didn't really like me very much, and I felt put down and despised. I found it difficult, and it just was a time when I really struggled with it. I found it difficult. I found it hard. And this didn't go on for just days or weeks or months. It went on for years. It was just a time it was really hard for me. And for probably the first 2 or 3 years, I pouted, I sulked, I played the victim, I didn't like it, I whined, I complained, and I moaned to God. But I've learned that God doesn't actually, when you whine, God doesn't listen. I think he's got some sort of angelic scrambler that turns it off, because nothing changed. And so after what, I came into a whole lot of different teaching. I came to realize about temperaments, and I came to understand how actually the way I was wired was probably quite annoying to the other person who was causing me pain. And I came to see that some of the things that I was doing would actually be quite irritating. And then with more and more understanding that I felt God gave me, it gave me, I stopped taking things personally, and I stopped getting hurt and offended, and I started adapting my behavior so as not to cause offense. And and God just gave me such a grace. And it was a change that, happened gradually with me. I'd like to say it happened on an altar call, but it didn't. It took a while. But over the period of time, I changed. And there was a sense of, acceptance, and, there was a sense of, I've changed. It didn't irritate me to the same degree. Now, did I enjoy that process? No. Would I even want to repeat that? No. But do I think that was valuable? Oh, yes. And am I grateful it happened? Yes, I am, because it changed me. God predetermined that would change me. And I was thinking about it, and I had a picture of that tree being in the midst of a forest. And you know how you see pictures and you just understand without you haven't got time to even think about it, but you just understood. If that person had not been like that, I would have been like in the middle of a forest, not able to rise up to my potential. I needed that person to be the way they were towards me, which caused me to stand up on my own 2 feet and not be too worried about what they thought about me. I needed that for my own growth and maturity. And if I hadn't had it, I wouldn't rise to where I am now and have yet further to go. I needed that from God's perspective. He had another purpose in mind. You only see it as you look back. And when you're in the midst of it, it's really difficult to see it. But I am so grateful for it. Why? Because behind each problem, there is a provision of God for you. And if we get our eyes off the problem and start saying, God, what is it that you want me to receive? What is it that you have for me now? What is it that you are doing in my life? God allows it in your life so you can be victorious. And he's allowed it because he knows that you can come out of this as a victor and not as a victim. And it's not just for you. It's for others after you, for others that you touch, for others that you affect, for others that are that you lead. Others too need you to get the victory. Because when you have a victory, you carry an anointing for victory. And as you speak and as you tell your story, it releases it on other people so they get it. And they get that release that comes through from your life. It's not just about you. It's for others too. Tell your neighbor, it's not just about you. Yeah. I wonder if the musos could come, please. Okay. Just before you have that breakthrough is the most painful time of all. There's a time when all the wheels fall off the trolley, you just want to give up. And if you're feeling like that this morning, you're probably very close to the breakthrough. I encourage you to partner with God and allow him to do his working in you. Just before the upgrade is when you will feel your very worst. That's meant to be encouraging, but it probably isn't. But actually it is. Have you not heard from the days ago I planned this? I know you have what it takes to break through. I know that when the problem came, I could allow it because I know you would join with me to smash this thing. Have you not heard days long ago I planned it? Be aware of the cycle. If you find that doubt is creeping in, ask God, what's going on? What's your thoughts on this? What are you trying to tell me? What's your perspective? If you have difficulty hearing God, get friends to help you. For goodness sake, we need each other. At times we need others to help us hear well. You need encouragement. Encouragement's wonderful. It changes an atmosphere. We need encouraging. And there's a red flag if you find you're isolating yourself. Remember, we're not wired for TV sermons. We need community. We need each other. We're wired to be with each other. If you get offended, please deal with it, forgive, and move on. Community is vital. Community is vital. Remember, it's not just about you. It's about others that you infect, others that you influence, others that will look at your life and your example and be inspired and think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. It's about community. It's about the church, about the body. You are designed to ooze. And I encourage you this morning, ooze out the love and the encouragement of God, especially in this season. We all get tired. We all get, I just would like to stop and we lie down now. I'd like to have a bit of rest. We can all get like that. But being conscious that we carry the love of Jesus in our lives. We are carriers of his grace. We are carriers of his goodness. And we are designed to lead there. How many of you are feeling tired this morning? Please just lift your hand. Feeling tired? Okay, those of you around, I wonder if you could just, those around, just get around people perhaps who've got their hands up. We're just going to pray. I want you just to pray for them. We all get tired. We can all get tired at this time. Please don't hesitate about putting your hand up if you're feeling tired. This is about the body ministering to the body here. Just as you lay your hands on them and pray, I just encourage you. Just ask Father God, what are you feeling about this? What's your perspective? Give them the first thing that comes. first thing that comes. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Just speak grace, speak hope, speak restoration. Encourage them to give over their burdens. Release strength. Release hope. Release, just cheer them on. Bless you. Thank you, God, for the half-dead bird. Thank you, God, that you see us as victorious. You've got victories lined up. Victories, victories, victories. This time of breakthrough is very close. Thank you, God, that you make provision for every need. Thank you, God. God, you're awesome. You are trustworthy. You're full of grace and goodness. And we release your healing and your wholeness, your joy and your expectancy over this place. We release a sense of your amazing love and goodness. We bless you, God. And those of you being prayed for, you might want to ask God, what areas are you going to give me the victory in? What are you doing in me? What are you doing in me? I don't want to be a whiner. I want to be one that grows through this into the upgrade. If we don't partner with God with a half-dead bird, we're not going to get our breakthrough. I want to encourage you to partner. And just as we finish, I want to just encourage you, come on, let's just stand. And I wonder if you mind repeating after me, please. Let's just invite God to come and partner with us in our situations. So I want you just to repeat after me, please. Father God, I give to you I give you every situation around my life. If I'm not feeling great, will you open my eyes as to what the fight is really about? And will you give me the grace I need to win the victory? Thank you for the victories you've got lined up for me. And any time I forget and think I'm on the losing side, please will you nudge me and remind me who my dad really is. Thank you. God bless you.